Hi everyone, this is Iskuhi Countarian, and I'm going to introduce you to Chapter 5, the Rational Choice Perspective. Substance use is chosen by individuals, groups, and societies, whether it's legal, illegal, healthy or unhealthy, beneficial or harmful, rational or irrational. Individual human beings possess will and intelligence. Human groupings operate under self-interest and rationality. The choice of substance use therefore must involve a considerable level of reasoning on the part of users or use groups over essential variables such as risks, rewards, pain, pleasure, cause, and consequence. The rational choice perspective contends on human rationality in its effort to understand substance, substance use, and substance users. It examines why a substance use adapted for, why certain substance use is regarded potential to age, gender, or occupation, and how individuals make their choices about use or non-use, all under the premises of human rationality. While it primarily follows rationality in its normal functioning, the rational choice perspective legally points to the sides of irrationality for certain inequality. For instance, can users make normally rational choices under the influence of drugs? Is there clouded reasoning towards rationality or impaired judgments in the context of addition? The rational choice perspective also investigates what range of rationality or irrationality a society may exhibit in its reaction to substance use and abuse as a social problem.
My name is Monette, and I'm reading Source of Inspiration. The rational choice perspective has roots in the classical school of criminology. The groundwork for classical criminology was laid by Italian social thinker Cesare Beccaria. According to him, humans explore and assess alternatives to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Assuming pleasure is gained from a deviating or law-breaking act, punishment need be rational and proportionate to the act. He argued that legislators should create laws, judges should not interpret laws but impose punishment in accordance with the law, that laws should be used to maintain social contracts with equal treatment to all people in jurisdiction, punishment should not be based on the act, not on the actor, and that it is more desirable to prevent crimes than to punish them. In Britain, Jeremy Bentham popularized Beccaria's ideas. Bentham believed that all human actions are calculated in accordance with their likelihood to produce advantage, pleasure, and happiness, and to avoid or prevent mischief, pain, or unhappiness. However, punishment should be justified only if it promises to prevent greater evil than it creates. Bentham's four main objectives for punishment are to prevent all criminal offenses, to convince offenders to commit less serious crimes, to persuade offenders to use no or less force in the commission of the crime, and to minimize costs in the social reaction to crime. In North America, the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment was incorporated into the U.S. Constitution. The famous French Penal Code of 1791 stated that its attempt was not only to legislate on every crime, but to fix by statute the penalty for each degree of each kind. A number of changes were made later to include premeditation, circumstance, and mental competence. Rational choice ideas were brushed aside when positivist quest for causes of crime took dominance in criminology. Culminating the revival of classical views on crime and deviance is the publication of Thinking About Crime by political scientist James Q. Wilson. Firing at the positivist view that crime is a function of external forces and can therefore be altered by governmental programs, Wilson argued that control effects should be focused on deterring would-be offenders and incarcerating known criminals. Classic criminology, neoclassic modifications, and positivistic rebuttals altogether provide fertile intellectual soil for the development of the contemporary rational choice perspective. The central tenets are people choose to commit or forego crime in consideration of both personal and situational factors. Personal factors that a reasoning criminal usually weighs in include his or her needs for material gains, thrills, or revenge, his or her criminal skills, and his or her access to legitimate avenues for success. And situational factors that a rational offender evaluates may range from the vulnerability of the target, the location of the operation, the reward of criminal undertaking, and the risk of apprehension to the severity of punishment. Once settling its theoretical assumption that offenders act rationally, the rational choice perspective places its major emphasis on how to practically deal with them. Situational crime prevention, general deterrence to make potential criminals fear the consequences, specific deterrence to punish known criminals, and incapacitation to reduce crime by denying motivated offenders the opportunity to commit crimes. The three variables which affect deterrence are certainty, severity, and celerity, which is the speed of the punishment. Incapacitation, while preventing crime, also has its downsides. It results in high prison population. Prison maintenance and management is costly. Some offenders are unnecessarily locked up for long periods of time. Crowdedness and deteriorating conditions make prisons a fertilizing ground for future criminality. Substance use and abuse has been shown to have an effect on personality, individuation, and analytic skill, defense strategy, and other individual choice variables.
Hi guys, I'm Aiden. I'll be presenting theoretical framework, its definition and theoretical image. The rational choice perspective views substance use as a choice made by users. Inherent in the perspective for theoretical exploration are the motive of the subject who makes the choice, the nature of the circumstance in which the choice is made, and the criterion of rationality against which both the choice and the choice maker are evaluated. The definition: choice implies options available to as well as the will or discretion commanded by a choice maker. A particular choice is made either because it fulfills the wish of free will or because it stands out as the most cost-effective, the most beneficial, or the most exciting option. The rational choice perspective builds upon will, choice, and rationality to develop its theoretical explanation of substance, substance use, and substance users. In the perspective of rational choice, substance, substance use, and substance user become target of choice, or choice maker. Factors that affect choice may emerge from any one of the three choice elements and from the context in which choice is made and carried out. A substance is a choice target. It is chosen because of its forms, structures, properties, and/or values. At the physiological level, it may act on certain areas of the body, leading to specific effects such as pain relief, sweating, enlarged pupils, or intensified heartbeat. At the psychological level, a substance may generate some usual or unusual feelings and mental states, including euphoria, scare, aloofness, mellowness, or peacefulness. At the social level, a substance may boost performance, heighten alertness, induce courage or endurance, change mood and atmosphere in group gatherings, counteract hazards, and vitalize social interactions. Substance use is an act of choice. A substance is taken in response to bodily needs, psychological tensions, and social pressures. Bodily needs may include hunger, thirst, sex, and other excessive or insufficient conditions caused by defects, deficiencies, malfunctions, and diseases. Psychological tensions may include transpired or translated mental states of bodily needs. They may also include some forceful mind conditions or tendencies, such as craving and withdrawal syndrome. Social pressures invoke efforts and struggles by individuals to stick to tradition, to be part of the crowd, to be different, or to make a statement about self-identity, self-determination, or social attitude. Substance users are choice makers. They choose between use and non-use. Human beings are material beings made up of substances. In order to achieve certain physical, mental, and social states, they have to arm themselves with an appropriate supply of substances. They may eat foods, take medicines, or use drugs, or they may appeal to spiritual forces. Socially, a user's choice of using a substance with no regard to nutritional and medicinal values can be affected by traditions, custom, fashion, law, sentiment, market, knowledge, and circumstance. Society is where choice of substance and substance use is made. Rationality behind social choice can be examined in terms of knowledge, tradition, custom, sentiment, and social system. It is important to note that knowledge, tradition, custom, sentiment, and social system provide different rationalities. In history, the known substances to human beings expand gradually and steadily. With advancement in trade, science, and manufacturing, people in the contemporary era know far more substances than their ancestors did. The base of choice has changed over time. In the past, choice was made based on a few known substances and in accordance with a tradition and convention. In contemporary society, there are a lot more choices and people follow their peers, neighbors, colleagues, and fellow citizens through the mass media, in social trend and vogues. From a purely analytical point of view, rationality becomes more apparent, more real, and more robust when it shifts base from entrenched tradition to sentimentalized social fashion. That's the end of the presentation, guys. Thank you.
Today, I'll be going over theoretical components and free will. To start off, the book describes what rational choice perspective means. It means to examine whole choosing process of substance used by users. Next, it talks about major variables falling under theoretical jurisdiction. That includes choice, choice-making situations, choice maker, and choice criterion. Thirdly, it talks about the human body as a selective entity. The human body has a biochemical system which are governed by a set of laws which entail physics, chemistry, biology, and physiology. Next, it talks about the substance intake in the 4 phases that it goes through. Starting off with the first one, the human body does not initially accept everything. It rejects a lot of objects in existence and takes a limited number of substances as nutrients, medicine, and other active agents. Secondly, the human body takes substances in different routes. That includes swallowing, inhaling, skin absorption, or through the bloodstream. Thirdly is the adjustment to substance. Human body may develop tolerance or other biochemical conditions. Fourthly, they talk about human body begins to withdraw when substance becomes absent. And finally, objective body conditions underpin subjective mind motions. Then the book goes into free will, in which it talks about free will being mystified as innate drives, inner urges, natural wants, instinctual desires, and unstoppable life energy. And next, it talks about the words versus free and will. Free meaning that it emits from the origin of life and represents the vigor of life. Will, in which it is a fierce force to conquer enemies, to overcome obstacles, acquire power and wealth, and to take charge. Next, we go into choice of use versus choice of non-use. Choice of use can be perceived as a demonstration of will in response to innate needs or deeply felt wants, free from social inhibitions or knowledge-based health alerts. Some boast about usage of free will in forms of accommodation, adaptation, tolerance, endurance, perseverance, etc. Secondly, choice of non-use can be viewed as a show of will as well, out of ego ideals or some personally adopted philosophies, free from both bodily dispositions and psychological allures. And lastly, it talks about the temporal situation pleasure brought about by substance use may cause a long-lasting systematic strain on one's biochemical system. So all in all, this section goes over why people use substances, substance abuse, why, how, do they feel like they have their own choice? Is it a free will? Is it being affected by peers? or so what and so forth. So that is my section, and that is theoretical components in free will.
My name is Emil Carrera, and I will be talking about rationality criterion from Chapter 5. This is all found in the book from Substance Use and Abuse, written by Victor Shaw. The pages are 110 through 112. To think rationally, one must choose to make decisions not by impulse or emotions, but intellectually. There has to be logical or rational explanations to those choices. It says that there needs to be some sort of process to make rational choices. It cannot be for the simple fact that you got angry at one moment, so you beat up your boyfriend or girlfriend. Connecting substance use to rationality can be explained that if a certain substance is used in relation to a medical condition, then that would be rational use of substance because it's for your health and it's going to help you better. Relative rationality can be said that it changes from time to time, place to place, and can be measured from short term to a long term. This rationality can be body-based or mind-based. An example in the book explains how one may rationally choose to take a painkiller, knowing that temporary side effects will harm your body, but in the long run, it'll take the pain away and it'll make you feel better. You don't really focus on what the pain may contain, where it comes from, who really made it. It might be, oh, I'm taking Advil, but that's not the case of them dumping some different aspirins in that. You just buy it from the store, take it, it relieves your pain. You don't know who made it, where it came from, any of that. There can be 4 different reasons why people use rational choice. One can be on the basis of having a certain goal, tradition, value, or affection. For example, when you have a goal, rational choice, you may be taking a painkiller to relieve some pain. When using the tradition rational choice, you can be basing your choices off tribal traditions or valuables you may have one point in time inherited, such as a smoking pipe. You smoke it just because your grandparents gave it to your parents who gave it to you, so now you're smoking, but it's not really that you like to smoke, but it's just a tradition. Value would be when come into play when you base your choices off things that you may think are morally right or wrong. It may be part of your norm system as well as any ideology you may have. Affection rational choice, which was a little tricky, but the example given in the book was made a little more clear. So for example, affection, there has to be some sort of internal urge, as irrational as it may sound, but it's still rational thinking to take a substance at a party because it makes you feel like you're the life of the party. So if you take it just because you want to go out and have fun and you know you'll be fun and everybody's going to enjoy you, then you're thinking rationally in the way that they talk about affection. And that's pretty much my section for chapter 5, rationality criterion. Thank you.
Hey class, I'm John, and I will be giving the next part on social influence. Individuals live in a culture and society in which they make choices under social and cultural constraints. In most cases, they subject their choices to social rather than personal standards for rationality judgment. They are likely to feel sooner or later that they are unwise and irrational if they stubbornly pursue their free will based interests without regard to social norms and restraints. Social influences figure in the individual's choice of substance and substance use from different sources in different forms and with different intensities. As far as source is concerned, it may come from tradition, custom, law, peer, or fashion. Tradition can be long established in a community or a culture. It can also be observed by a family, a group, or an organization. An example of this is drinking on a holiday. Customs dictate behavior and routine activities or reactions to important events. For instance, someone being served tea or drinking a beer after a final exam or a farmer's harvest. Law classifies substances and regulates substance use. People use more licit than illicit substances. An example of this is using prescription and over-the-counter drugs. Peer exerts its influence with resort to similarity in age, race, job, or social status. People in a similar category tend to follow each other in their behavior and idiosyncrasy. For instance, an adolescent experimenting with drugs, celebrities sipping fine wine and smoking expensive cigar, colleagues following one another to take a coffee break, chatting to each other in a smoking area, or visiting a bar on the way home. Fashion, as generalized social behavior, may sweep a segment of society or the whole population into a short lived yet intensified interest in a newly found substance. For instance, a new drug making its debut in a fashionable way to the club scene and being tried by adolescents, young adults, and club enthusiasts. Regarding form, social influence may make its impact through the general environment on its specific situations. Individuals live in a general social environment. They listen to the radio, they watch television, read newspapers and magazines, attend political rallies, go to supermarkets, walk in the streets, conduct business, and run other chores in their daily routine. They act under the law, deal with the government, and feel the sentiment of society. Voluntarily or involuntarily, they may choose to use or not to use a substance or a group of substances in response to overall ideological, political, economic, and legal climates and atmosphere in their organization, community, and society. The specific situation includes various social settings where a group of people gather for sports, recreation, and other activities. Surrounded by people of similar interests or characteristics, one can be easily led to engage in acts that may stretch beyond his or her natural capacities. Drinking and using drugs, unfortunately, are often typical examples of those out of control acts. Related to the source of influence, impacts from tradition, customs, law, and fashion are likely to be environmental, whereas those from peer are likely situational. However, peer influence can be environmental as well. An example of this is one can argue that people take their peers seriously in each social occasion because they generally are other directed in the contemporary era. Likewise, tradition, custom, law, and fashion can exert their respective influence in specific situations too. For instance, tradition is often passed on in family settings. Custom is usually exercised through concretely arranged rite of passage by particular age cohorts or ethnic groups. The intensity of social influence may range from strong, moderate, or weak. Depending upon the source, the form, and their various combinations, the same social influence can exhibit different intensities. For instance, tradition is usually remote and weak, and its influence in contemporary society where focus is put on the present and future. Influence can be moderate if a tradition is recently established. It can be intense and strong at the time when and in the occasion where tradition is honored and emphasized. In general, influence from custom and traditions are gradual, voluntary, moderate, or weak, whereas those from law, fashion, and peer are immediate, involuntarily, and strong, or at least moderate. Environmental influence tends to be distant, suggestive, and casual, while situational influence is likely to be close, coercive, and intense. That is it.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Waters, and my part was about rationally. So the fact is that is a user really doing anything in the form of are they rationally taking the use that they need? And a lot of the times, um, your brain is telling you you need more, you need more, you need more. And I'll say if that user was to get an endless supply of the same amount every single day, their intake may increase. So like a cocaine user, if they take 3 lines every hour or every if they take 3 lines a day, but say they have like an endless supply of that 3 lions can turn into 3 lions every hour because they have so much of it. Why stop? Now say that endless supply ends. These people will literally do anything. They will sell their bodies, they will steal, they'll become a drug dealer, in fact, just to get their hands on the use and what they want and what they need. So like it pretty much becomes their number one priority. Like a lot of the times, like if they had family, if they have friends, anything else, they're not going to care about what their friends or family are thinking. They're just going to be like, no, like my number one need is my drugs, is my cocaine, is like I don't care about anything else. So like the theoretical application of it all is that like people say that, oh, this came from nature. I mean, cocaine doesn't come from nature, but like weed, for instance, that comes from nature. So people are fighting it and saying, oh, it's good for you, oh, it's good for you. But if you're doing it 24/7, isn't that an addiction? So it really comes down to like what you're doing. Is it really good for you or is it bad for you? Because like what drives the humankind to think that, oh, like that's what I'm attracted to, like that's what I want to do? Because what in the first place told you to think like, oh, smoke this smoke this, or let me take a lime into this, or let me inject this into my body? Like what? That's the whole question of what people need, is what is being asked nowadays.
Hi, my name is Megan Cabron, and my part is on empirical research. The rational choice perspective creates opportunities for empirical research. Case studies can follow individual substances, uses, users, groups, and societies to analyze closely. Focusing on substance abuse, research can be done on routes of administration, forms and occasions of use, etc. Concentrating on users, case studies can focus on private stories to learn in detail about every choice in the path to addiction or recovery. Fall into substance abuse can be for very many reasons, such as an accident, encounter with a stranger, or temporary loss of mind, aside from peer-related choice factors. Dependent substance abuse may not be a matter of choice, but a no-way-out situation. Only through case studies can all these varieties be documented and researched. Groups and societies may change over time in their attitudes and behaviors towards substance abuse. There may be long periods of pro-substance use where sanctions against the use are loosened or abused, or there may be times where the citizens are shamed for the use. Survey research is helpful to find commonalities in substance use choice. Through this research, we are able to find situational factors for individuals' substance use. Environmental studies can shed light on the importance of one factor over another. At the system level, we are able to see whether a social policy or public movement makes any difference on substance use choice. Similar societies may also be compared to learn if factors are present in both societies or one, and how this factor may influence substance use. At the micro level, users can be assigned or randomly selected to different environmental conditions to find if a situation influences choice of substance abuse.
My name is Ignasa Kocharian, and I will be reading about policy implications. Substance use is a choice. People have the free will to use a substance or refrain from it. Society has the choice to deal with it or not deal with the substance use. The rational choice perspective can evidently provide both sides with alibi for their respective choices. In the realm of public health and treatment, medical professionals have expertise to correct dysfunction and turn the abnormal back to normal. The distorted condition they are faced with is frequently transitional, meaning that it can be either reversed to its initial state through intervention or be allowed to reach a new state with its own momentum. However, since the second option is primarily viewed as irresponsible reaction by medical professionals themselves, few would choose to be a bystander and watch the situation get out of control. For the sake of demonstrating their expertise, medical professionals would choose to take matters into their own hands, whether or not they have an accurate and functional approach about the situation. From an objective view, intervention can correct a dysfunctional condition. There is also the possibility that it might aggravate the condition. The last last possibility may be relevant to substance use. Substance users choose to use substances, and the biochemical system of users chooses to accommodate and adapt to the substances, and if a transitionally adjusting or disturbing condition is left alone to develop by its own logic, it may eventually reach its own balance, self-sufficiency, or functionality. On the prevention side, health educators, social workers, therapists, and counselors tend to assume that they know more than their substance use clients about bodily needs, psychological desires, health attitudes, and social demands. They question clients and their abilities to make rational choices about their own mental and physical welfare. As a result, they automatically impose their frame of mind and their perspective of rationality upon their clients, and they lose sight of other versions of normality, functionality, and rationality. An essential learning from the rational choice perspective is substance users are rational choice makers just like anyone else. They make substance choices on the basis of their knowledge, experience, needs, desires, and circumstances. To influence users in their substance use choice making behavior, prevention workers first need to assume rather than ignore their client's frame of mind or perspective of rationality. And only when they know which one is more important than another in their client's world of rationality can prevention workers introduce needed variables to change their client's substance use choice. Learning from the rational choice perspective can be either non-reflective or reflective for social control. A non-reflective approach is to assume that substance users are rational choice makers who respond to social control messages and measures. To control substance use is therefore to create a general social environment in which substance is portrayed as irrelevant to basic human needs. Substance use is viewed as harmful, and substance users are distanced as outsiders. Licit substances are levied heavy taxes. Illicit substances are outrightly forced out of the open market into underground operations. While licit substances use may occur in private homes or capitalize on public occasions, illicit substance use is pushed only to attics, toilets, street corners, and other isolated areas. A reflective response from social control is to examine its whole operation to see if it's rational to keep the war on drugs. Second, social control agents should readjust their view and treatment of substance users not only as rational choice makers who respond to social control measures, but also as rational choice makers who approach their own substance use habits with care and caution. Imagine that substance use were not controlled. Substance users would obtain their drugs of choice without the fear and under normal market conditions.
Hi, my name is Wilma, and today I'll be talking about the Rational Choice Perspective, Chapter 5, and I'll be discussing about the sections Life and Community and Work and Organization. So for life and community, most variables pertaining to substance use choice center around life in the community. People use substances in the following are rebelling against tradition, custom, or fashion inherent in their communal experiences. People emulate parents, siblings, cousins, peers, or neighbors in substance inhalation, experimentation, and habituation. In a sense, it is illegitimate to say that life is the ultimate source of rationality in substance use choice. Suppose substance users are rational. They make an irrational choice of substance abuse because they are subject to irrational conditions supplied from life in their community. Suppose substances users are irrational. They are irrational because they are nurtured to be irrational by the very conditions inherent in their life. They make an irrational choice of substance use because they cannot make any sensible decision about their own welfare in a community or of a rational existence. To effect change in substance use and substance users, communities and people in the community must first look into themselves to see what can be done about larger environmental and situational conditions. Externally forced actions may change something overnight, but only self-reasoned decisions endure long in their consequences. So for the work and organization section, it goes like this. Central to the task of an organization, it might sound outrightly rational for it to ban a substance and its use on the premise if it is legally controlled to determine an employee from its payroll if he or she fails to perform his or her duty under the influence of a substance, or to remain neutral if substance use does not affect his employee morale and productivity or bring it into contact with the law. But in the sense that work is a human act and organization is a unit of society, work organization and choices made by or on behalf of them cannot be evaluated just in terms of variables within themselves. Instead, they must be judged by an array of factors both within and out. For instance, one uses a substance due to the stress of work, negative influence from coworkers, or the discriminating environment of his or her organization. On the other hand, if an organization renders support to an employee in trouble with substance, it may not just sacrifice its economic interests. Instead, it may create various benefits on many fronts. To the employee in need of help, the organization presents a precious gift to keep his or her courage in making rational choices pertaining to his or her substance abuse. From a reflective point of view, the rational choice perspective alerts public health, social control, community organization, and other agents or agencies to frame their approach to substance use in the principle of rationality and choice. Is it rational just to prevent, treat, control, shame, and punish substance use and substance users? Are there alternatives? The most important point is substance users are ultimate choice makers. Only when they are understood and respected in the right to choice can they be gradually persuaded and led to a path towards self-control and self-welfare. Intervention is then not to set agendas, impose rules, or apply coercive forces, but to introduce new variables, create new situations, raise new hopes, and make new choices. A choice will stand and bear fruit when the choice maker feels he or she is in charge of making it and following through with it. Thank you.